Alrighty, good morning. I'm having some coconut water this morning after a run. It's got some pulp in it, and that might be offensive to some of you that it has chunks. But the chunks are what make it delicious. And I don't know why I'm drinking it out of this cup. Man, I'm gonna have like an IV of this stuff. Well, today I had this really interesting conversation that I recorded with an individual who's going through a tough time, trying to find a job, and she applied to, I think it's something like 30 or more jobs. Wound up having two on-site interviews, and she didn't get any success of those two on-site interviews, and she was really frustrated. She reached out to me and she's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why is nobody actually extending me an offer? Why am I only getting two on-sites? And so during the call that I'll be sharing with you in a minute, you'll notice why at the end of the call that she was not having any luck, not having any success. And I think this is something that's really important for a lot of people to recognize, that when people are asking you interview questions, they want you to go super deep. They want to know that you know how to deliver results. And oftentimes what people kind of tend to do in their interviews, and what makes them fail in their interviews, is that they don't go nearly deep enough. What they do is they talk about kind of surface level things, and it leaves the interviewer going, well, like, what did they do? What were they actually responsible for? And so, this individual has been in a product management role for 3 years, and you could see the progression from where she started, answering the questions to me, and then where it wound up needing to go, and how big of a gap there actually was. So I think this is going to be really interesting for anybody who's trying to land a role, to show you kind of the mindset progression that you need to go from being starting with these kind of broad generalities that people often share in interviews, which gets them hung up and not get them the job, to ultimately what they need to be doing is sharing something ultra specific and showcasing that they can really deliver results, and that they know what they're doing, and that they could do that for that company or for this new company as well. So hopefully you find the video insightful, and enjoy.
Ever since last year, I interview with 30 plus companies. I track like how many interviews I was landing. So I didn't pass the screening for the five companies.
Okay.
And then
So out of 30.
Out of 30, yes. And then I passed the screening stage with the recruiter, 15 companies. And then, I went to the second interview for for 8 companies. And then I finally landed 2 on-site. However, because of COVID, the positions were on hold.
Okay.
And ever since that time, which was March, I was trying my best to network. I was trying to reach out to everybody to see if I could land an interview. But, because of COVID, I think everyone, almost most of the companies were on a hiring freeze. Yeah. And now in July, I finally heard back from 2 companies. And, within that few months, it was 3-4 months that I didn't interview. And then I think it went back to, point A, where I wasn't really doing well in the interview. Yeah. And, I passed the screening for the recruiter, and then I was doing the second interview with the hiring manager, which is the product manager. Yeah. And I didn't make it to the on-site. So now,
out of 30, mm-hmm. how many did you make to an on-site?
2.
Okay, so you made 2 an on-site. Which 2 companies were they?
First one was internet brands. Okay. And then second one, it was Mitchell International.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, so for all 30 roles that you applied to, mm-hmm. were they all product manager roles, or were they all different types of roles?
every role was actually product manager role. So like, I think I told you I landed 30 interviews.
Yeah.
So I applied to, like, if I remember the rough number, like I think I applied to maybe 100 jobs.
Yeah.
So I think my resume, there's nothing wrong with my resume.
Yeah. That's a pretty normal hit rate, right? So like you applied to 100 jobs, you got 30 calls. So your success rate for the first phone screen was 30%. And then to the second round, how many of the 30% did you get to like this, like a second phone screen?
It was 50%, so 15.
So 15. And then of those, you had a 2 that actually yielded an onsite.
Yes.
So 2% of your, and that's about a normal rate. So, okay, now product manager. Now maybe you could just explain, just so there's context for anybody watching, like what is your background? So like the education experience, and then just real briefly on your most recent roles.
Okay, so I have bachelor's in chemistry.
Okay.
And I got my MBA in general management after getting my chemistry background.
Okay.
Like everyone else, like I think I was very confused on what I wanted to do in my career.
Of course. Same here, like everybody.
Yeah. So after getting my chemistry degree, I worked as a purchasing coordinator, inside sales, tax accountant, and then I was lost. Like I didn't like any of the jobs that I was doing. Yeah. So that's when I decided to get my MBA to get like broader knowledge in business. Yeah. And that's how I got to know about this role called product manager. And then I joined a tech startup, which was like a SaaS product for SMS marketing.
Okay.
And it was actually a company that was actually run by our alumni. So my professor actually, gave me like a warm introduction so I could get some insight. And then, I started as an intern, and then it switched over as a, full-time position. Yeah. And I was at the company for a little over 3 years.
Okay.
And
that was product. You were in a product manager type role there?
Yes.
Okay. So you have about 3 years experience in that. Okay.
Yes.
In the SaaS.
SaaS.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So if you to make it brief, I think the biggest competitor for our company was Twilio. Okay. So it was like a text marketing platform for small to enterprise customers. Okay. And my main role there, because it was a startup, there weren't that many people, so I had to wear a lot of hats. Yeah. And so I was talking with the customer, trying to come up with the pain points, and I had all these meetings with like stakeholders, engineers, and marketing, sales, and customer support. Yeah. So that way, so I could really push forward with making this work. So like, I mean, obviously the platform itself, like text marketing, I think the software was already built like 10, 15 years ago. So it was pretty stable. Yeah. But at the same time, we were gearing more towards the small mom and pop shops. Okay. Where it could be more cost efficient.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for that. So did you try to apply to Twilio?
Yes, okay. I have, yeah.
And no response back from them?
Yeah, no response.
So it was interesting. That same thing happened to me. I applied to all these companies that were exactly a match for the background that I had, and nobody responded. And then the companies that were not an exact match were the ones that called me. So, okay, where do you think now? In your message to me, you said that there were certain places where you think you did well, and certain places where you think you might have not done well, but you didn't really get the feedback. So it's hard to know. Where do you think you did well and not well?
I mean, I think for most, talking about myself, I think I am pretty good at that now, like to the point where, because I am passing the recruiting stage. Sure. But when it comes to talking with the product manager or the hiring manager, I think, maybe my experience is not a fit for like, when I'm talking with them, like, I'm not sure if I need to sell myself a little bit more. Like, I'm not really good at that, to be honest. And, like, just because I am very upfront about like what I can do and what I cannot do. So like, I'm not too sure if that's the take I should be taking. And also, I was very confused and frustrated because, when it comes to, if you like, we're not moving forward, like I don't get any feedback. Like it's very vague, or like they just ghost on you. So like, I don't know like how I'm going to like improve.
I know.
In that sense.
It's so random, right? Like how the hell do you know? Okay. So, usually the phone screen is interesting because it's just surface level, right? So surface level, all these people, 30%, your hit rate's pretty good. But then you get into the onsite and they're going into the meat, right? They're going into the details. And usually, so normally the reason why they pass is because there's not enough depth in your answers. It doesn't necessarily have to be that your experience is perfect. Or your achievements are incredible. It just has to be how you articulate those achievements. So, like, if somebody were to ask you a product management related question about tell me a time that you achieved something in your SaaS role, how would you go about answering that question? I mean, don't think about it as an interview question, like just a conversation with you and you and I, Like, what would you say in the 3 years that you were there? What was the main thing that you took away as something you could talk about?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was more of like, no matter like how great your product is, like it is very important to have a strong team, like across the board, like, and cross-functional team. And also not just that, but like, you have to have a great customer too. Like, so like I noticed that not having just great product will make your product, like your business successful. So like it has to have, because we did have great customers at the same time. Like, I feel like there was a lot of, like we weren't sure which direction we're going as a business, like with the stakeholders. So like, I think that was like one of the key takeaway that I took. And then the other thing was, the better you understand the customer, like it will, like your product will be more successful in that way. Like, so like, we definitely did a lot of survey. We did a lot of interviews just so that we understand the customers better. But I think we weren't really prioritizing it correctly to the point where we were going to the right direction because our company ended up shutting down last year. So that's one of the key takeaways. Okay, so
from an achievement standpoint, right? A couple things that you're saying that you didn't know your customers, and we're talking about team dynamics. So the PM's job, right? The primary PM job is I have to know my customers. And I have to drive a roadmap so that I can help the engineering team and the business team understand which direction we need to take. Like it's your responsibility to say, I didn't know the customers. What I did was I went and did a survey. It's not a we thing. Right? And a lot of these tech companies get caught up in the words we, and they start trying to dig into, well, like, what did you specifically do? And so, like, if you were to say, what piece of it did you own? Who did you talk to? Maybe paint me that context.
Okay. So, I mean, because we were such a small company, like I think I had to, like, I spoke with the customers, like I sometimes had to do demos because like we were short-staffed.
Sure.
And then when it comes to, like, I noticed that, for tech companies, like, not all customers are tech savvy. So like definitely need to do a lot of like training of like how to use a product.
Sure.
And then, once that happens and, we have this onboarding process, like I help to build a process for the onboarding as well. So that way we could track like how many conversions we're having, and also like some of the data that we could track to see if it's successful or not. So I also implemented the CRM system so that we could track our customers better. At first, like we had only like 10 to 15 customers, so I could remember everybody like on top of my head.
Yeah.
But like, as we were growing, like I couldn't. So I implemented the CRM system so that we could track better. And then the one challenge though, like that we were constantly having was because text messages is, you can't really see how many people actually read the messages.
Yeah.
So the thing was like, all the customers were complaining, like, how do we define the success, like, of our campaign, like when we launch it? So, I had to look at a lot of like competitors and also try to look at a lot of data, so that way we could provide some type of reporting tool, like where it shows like how many percentage like responded to your message and how many didn't. However, but even though they didn't respond, doesn't mean they didn't read the message. So that was another challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, I mean, my main goal was to interact with like our top 10 customers, and from that, like, get to know their pain points, and then from that pain points, like I will prioritize the features that what we're going to be building.
Yeah.
And then based on that, I will get with my engineers and my designer to see what will be the timeline of it, and to push it forward. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things. The main goal, I think, when we're spinning the answer and you're putting your hat on as if you were the person interviewing you. When somebody says the main goal is ... and then you say communicating with my customers, that's not the main goal, right? And these are the things that we need. These are the things that we need to tweak in your answers, because as I'm trying to kind of uncover what the achievements are, they're very much buried within your. So I heard 2 topics of metrics, but I didn't hear what the metrics were. I hear that a goal is to talk with customers. I forgot the exact terminology you used, but a goal is to communicate with customers. But that wasn't the goal. And then I heard pain points. And so I hear that you're a liaison between your customers. This is a small company. You got 15 customers. You are the bridge to get their feedback. You're prioritizing. So your main goal is actually what? Is it to increase their usage of the text platform? Is it to increase the amount of customers that you have over a certain period of time? This goal doesn't have to be delivered by your boss. This goal can be something that you derived by yourself, right? Some kind of random mental metric. But that's the thing that these companies are going to want you to articulate. So let's try this piece. Okay. So if you're onboarding these customers or talking to them often, you're the main liaison. If you were to bucketize, what is their main problem? Over 3 years that you were there, like, what would be the thing that you'd say?
I think the main problem with them was not having a good communication with their customers. So like if they wanted, like they didn't have a good marketing tool for them, for their business.
Okay.
And they don't have the time to do it either.
Right.
So
that's like why they come to you. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So they don't have this. So they onboard to your company thinking that they're going to be able to have more communication with their customers.
Yeah, and they are thinking that it's going to automate it for them. Like they think like we're like the marketing company that will actually launch all the text messages for them.
Yeah.
Like that was like their expectation. But like you actually have to do it on your own. Like we will help you with the onboarding.
But they have to create the content.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So that becomes maybe a pain point number one. That's probably not really, well, I mean, maybe it's solvable, but like, what's a pain point that you took from them, which you were able to prioritize and bring to the engineering team and actually ship?
So I would say I would say the reporting system and also the schedule message, where you don't have to be on time, like you don't have to be on the computer when you want to actually send it, but you can schedule it ahead, like in advance, so that way the message will go on that time that they wanted.
Okay.
And then the reporting system, where it shows at least of like how many messages were sent and how many messages were responded, so that way they could kind of determine whether or not if their messages were successfully delivered or not.
Got it.
In that sense.
Got it. Okay, so how big are these companies?
So the enterprise customer we had, like I cannot tell you like how big it is, like in a way, but it is an enterprise customer, and they were sending about 700,000 messages a day. So like
okay.
And then
Okay, so here's the story that's now emerging for me. I'm seeing it's a small SaaS organization where let's see. So a small SaaS organization, startup with X number of employees that is catering to 12, international organizations that are sending X number of millions of messages per day. You're setting context to let them know that, it's a small startup, but these companies are big. There's a massive amount of message traffic that's going on with these organizations. It's a big deal. And I didn't have that context at first. Then from there, what your primary goal? Your primary goal over the past 3 years, there's two things that you're most proud of, right? Not just like, the messages, messaging platform and the reporting. It's like, I had two primary goals over the 3 years. Two things I'm really proud of. Number one is the messaging platform. Number two is the, number one is the scheduling. Schedule messaging. The other was the metrics. And then,
reporting.
And then from there, the reporting. And then from there, you could dive in. Like my goal for the reporting was X. So I gathered their feedback. They told me that, hey, they needed a specific button on the page over here, that did X, Y, Z. Schedule by day, schedule by time, schedule by whatever. And then the other feature, like this, and this. These are the three things that they needed. Right. So what I did, I wrote user stories for the engineering team. And I'm sorry, hold on one second. I'm getting these beeps on my phone here. Let me turn my phone off. Let's see. Okay, turning off. All right, so all right, now let's dig into each one of these features. From a scheduling side of things, what feedback did you gather, and what was the outcome? Like, what did you do next?
Okay, so the feedback that we received was, so there was actually a time frame where we blocked the users to not be able to send messages. Okay. So like from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. was like the time that you could only send out messages.
Okay,
and there were customers saying, we want to send out messages at 6 a.m. Like we're a gym, like we want to send a motivational quote like at 6 a.m.
Yeah, right.
And so like stuff like that. They didn't like that we are blocking some type of time frame, but we were doing that so that because for text messages, like it is different like than email. Like if you want to unenroll from the program, then you just text stop, and then you'll be not in the system anymore. So like we wanted to alleviate the spamming, like because like we don't want too many people are opting out like from the system. So and then the other thing was the scheduling, like I think the platform itself, like it was a little bit confusing because like we didn't have a different time frame where like it didn't have the Pacific time, Mountain time. So like we were based in Pacific, but like the customers that are in East Coast or Mountainside, like they weren't able to schedule it on their own time.
Yeah.
So they were confused, like when it was like 9 a.m., like it's a different time zone on their time.
Sure.
So it was sending in a different time. So
okay, so you have a time zone problem. You have a spamming problem that you've now uncovered to me. The spamming metric, like if you used Aweber or any one of these email based services, which I use a lot to communicate with people. They have a big thing on their homepage that says like how many people clicked, how many people opened, how many people clicked the link in the message, all these engagement metrics, and then what the bounce rate was. And so that did you like those are the type of details because it's a SaaS text message opening app and you're the PM, like those are things that like I would be asking you and I would want to like, hey, so what's your average bounce rate for all your customers? And I would want you to like fire these things off. Like, what's your average open rate? Because what you told me was that they wanted to send all these messages at all times of the day, but your company didn't allow them to do it because of a bounce rate. And so like is bounce rate on the homepage?
Yeah, so this is very complicated because it is because of the TCPA regulation. Like we cannot see on our end either because like for example, like you're sending a text message with like for a toll-free number, like you won't be able to see if it's like it will say delivered, but like you can't really tell like if it's actually delivered itself. If that makes sense. Yeah. And that was like another challenge too because they sometimes come to us and say, I feel like our messages are not delivering.
Yeah.
And like, there's no way for us, like on our end to see if it was delivered or not. Sure. And we can't really show them like if it was like bounce rate or anything like email. It's like, it's not simple as that.
Yeah.
So, if someone actually responds with a stop, like opting out, or maybe they are responding to their marketing campaign that they launched, then, that was like the only way we could really track it. For them to see how many messages were actually responding in that sense. And also, like if you're a restaurant owner, like they track which number, like how many people are actually coming when they are sending messages. So like it was very manual work for them to go through, like if we had to do, like if we need to give them the metrics.
Got it. Okay. All right. So clearly this is a big pain point for them, right? They have no awareness of who is opening and you have some kind of regulations going on, right? So that's some context that you could tell me right out of the gate. I'm a small company. There's X number of enterprise. I have, I'm dealing with regulations that are different from an email-based communication service like Aweber, where they show you bounce rate, where they show you all this stuff. We're not able to do that. And thus our SaaS customers, their main pain point appears to be that they don't have the metrics they need to feel comfortable with your service. And thus, which is why the company goes out of business, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's a problem. But I think you have to take one or two clear examples and not go down rabbit holes with the interviewer, right? Like if you're going to stick to the metrics topic or the open rate topic, like stick to just one. And show how from start to finish you solve the problem, and don't deviate from there, right? Because like what I'm hearing from you and your answers is like, well, I heard this avenue and I heard another avenue and another avenue, and I'm going, well, what did she help solve, right? That's what these interviewers are really wanting to know, and maybe so maybe we could practice that, like take just one thing and try to articulate from start to finish, like what was it that you heard about, you fixed, and you measured? That's all these interviewers want to know. What was the problem? What was the goal you took to measure it? When did you implement? What did you implement? And was it successful? That's it. That's like the core formula for this whole thing. And then they go, oh, this person knows how to set goals, uncover problems, measure results. That's it.
Okay.
And especially with this scenario, like if you've been at a company, okay, so like if you're a new grad and you've never been at a company, totally understandable that you wouldn't have the ability to articulate a problem, a result, an action. However, if you've been at a company for 3 years and it's SaaS and you already have some big, like potentially multinational organizations, then you should have been able over a 3-year period to articulate at least one thing that you achieved. And I think maybe that is the primary sticking point for not getting past the interview or the on stage.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that really helped me understand a little bit better on like what I'm not doing well on my interview. So like, I mean, I think because like for me, like I thought it wasn't really the behavioral type of questions or my achievement questions that I am not really moving forward with, because I thought, because like the second interview mainly focuses on like product sense, like and all the other aspects of the product manager interview. But yeah, I mean that really helps. That I really should like rethink about like what my like biggest achievement was like in that 3-year experience.
Because if you could, so the way that you articulate to me your biggest achievement is the same formula for the way you articulate how you dealt with the team. It's the same formula for how you dealt with a failure. All of these things wind up falling into the same, and also same thing with product sense. Like if you're going into a Facebook interview, a product sense interview is going to be like, what is, how did you measure the success of a product? And so you're gonna just lay it out in a framework. Here was the problem. Here's all the what, why questions that I was able to, uncover from the customer. Here's the user stories I created, gave them the engineering team, prioritized them accordingly. And I decided that we were going to measure this. I wasn't entirely sure if we were going to measure that thing, but I think that was the right metric. We launched, and as soon as we launched, I started measuring the thing. And it turns out that I was right or wrong, right? That could be that could be a failure story. It could be a achievement story. However, the goal wound up turning out. So, okay. I think, so the PM experience that you have is just mainly that one SaaS company, right?
Yes. Because I mean, I did have another role, but it was like more of like a consulting company where we were trying to launch 2 products like from South Korea to US.
Yeah.
So it was for about 11 months. I was actually it was like a side project that I was doing on the side. But like, I don't think it really relates a lot more than the SaaS product. And, obviously they do ask about that because I do have it on my resume, but I think they want to hear more about my SaaS product than my other role.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's practice this from the achievement side. Let's go back to the achievement side. And let's pick the one thing, just one thing, and try to avoid going down a particular rabbit hole of telling me other items. But if it's just the scheduling or reporting, pick one of those and tell me from start to finish.
Okay. So I think I'm going to pick the reporting because I think it deals with a lot of metrics. And so the situation, the problem that we were having was all our customers are sending X amount of messages and they are not able to track how many messages were sent or received from their customers. So they were confused if it was actually delivered or not. So they are having difficulty to define the success of their campaigns, each of their campaigns. Sure. The requirements that I actually, so the feedback that I receive, based on that, like I noticed that we need to have some type of metrics showing on our platform with like some type of reporting system. So that way they could see, how many messages were sent and receive like in numbers or in percentage. So that way they could articulate if it was successful or not based on their content that they were sending. So I gather the user story, and I have a user stories to talk with my engineering team to let them know about the situation, and I got the product. I got the requirement of like the timeline of like how long it will take from the engineering team and the designer, and based on that, I like. From the process, like I will, keep trying to interact with the customers too, to make sure that we are going into the right direction.
Okay, so hold on one second. So I'm taking some notes here. So when you started off, you're saying that these customers are sending X number of messages. When you're opening with that type of statement, the first thing I would want to know, the first red flag that hits me is, does this individual know how many messages? They've already communicated to me that they only have 12 customers. I should know exactly how many messages they're sending per month, per day, and per year, broken out by client. I should know who my biggest client is, right? Like those are the things that like Facebook or Amazon or Google are going to be like, they want to know. All right. So instead of saying X number of messages, say average daily messages sent were X, average annual messages were Y. Like that's something you can disclose because you're not disclosing company, names or anything like that. Right. So then they go, this person is metrics detailed. The next thing. So you uncovered the pain point. You told me a little high level story about that. This is what they needed. The problem they gave me was X. So really refine. My customers needed metrics to understand how many messages were actually received. However, this was a problem for us because text messaging platforms do not allow based on regulations. Boom. Right. So then I go, wow, that's an interesting challenge that she's facing because they don't really allow. Okay. Now what's the context of, I think where it really started to slip was you kept interacting with the customers, but I don't know what those interactions were. How many customers did you work with? Right. So, okay. So they told you a problem. You created some user stories. What were the user stories? Right. What is the very specific thing? So, cause like any user story it has to be as detailed as a user, I need a button on the bottom left-hand side of the page that when clicked opens a scheduler, which gives me day, month, time, or whatever, or whatever the metric is. So what's that thing that you gave to the engineering team?
So, I will probably when I conduct an interview with the customer, like I will tell them step by step of what they are needing. So like I will once they send out a message, when they go to the reporting system, instead of showing how many messages were sent, they want to see how many messages were delivered. So that was like one of the biggest pain point or the biggest problem that users were facing.
So they didn't have the number of messages delivered.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but then the problem was, like I said before, like because of the regulation, it was difficult to identify like how many messages were delivered.
Okay.
So, like we were having back and forth with the the regulations and the engineering team saying that, it is hard to show the number of delivered messages because of the regulations. However, we can show like how many people actually responded to those messages that that was sent.
Okay. So you can show. So just like you told me right now, problem is how many messages were delivered. They don't know.
Yes.
This was difficult for us because of regulations. Mm-hmm. You worked with the engineering team because this was their primary pain point. Mm-hmm. Engineering team comes back and says, we can show response rate and maybe one or two other things. Mm-hmm. You go back to the customer and say, would that work for you? Hey, we're not quite, because of regulations, whatever, we're not, you want to tell them that, but, would this work for you? Where would you want it on the page? What frequency? And then from there, you developed a set of user stories, which were what? And that's what I would need to know from you. So they're showing, we can show, the engineering team says we can show response rate. And is that what you put on the page?
So yeah, I after hearing that, I went back to the customer saying, would that be enough data, like metrics for them to define the success of their campaign, and they would say, they still said, they want to see how many messages were delivered and how many messages were actually landline number, because they don't know like if all the numbers are mobile number as well. So we had to let them know that, if they are uploading like certain like customer numbers onto our system, like you are liable for whatever, if it's a landline number or mobile number, because like we cannot identify each number for them. However, if they do opt in with their mobile number with our system, then, obviously it is a mobile number. We could tell that it is a mobile number that they could receive text messages.
Okay. All right. So here, like any company, whether it's Amazon or Facebook or your organization, they face these challenges every day, right? These kind of like road blocking, no movement challenges where there's some regulation or some team that's not able to work with you, and you can't get done what the customer actually wants. So you have to create a proxy. You have to show them a metric that makes them feel comfortable and gives them what they want in a roundabout way. Right. So maybe there's some statistical significance that you can display on the page. Maybe there's, a breakdown of mobile versus landline. Maybe, right. Like, see, I'm already solutioning, and that's what a interviewer for a PM is going to want to see. They're going to want to see how does this individual break through roadblocks? And I'm not seeing that from the answers that you're giving. Right. So I think it's like, all right, so engineering team saying they're kind of throwing their hands up in the air like, hey, we can't. And I'm kind of getting that sense from you like, man, we just really can't do anything. And that's not what we want to hear. Right. So what wound up being the thing that you could do, and what was implemented?
So the only thing that we could actually show was, how many messages were responded.
Okay.
Rather than, not everyone can respond even though they read the messages, but we could at least show a metric of how many, for example, if you send out 100 messages and if 20 customers are responding, then it will show that 20% response rate. So that way you could at least see some type of metrics for the customers to see that it was actually delivered. So in other words, there were times like when there were system errors and, they didn't receive any response. And, then we will definitely go into our system to see if it was our end, like that the messages were not sending. But, at least like we could if at least like when the messages, like 100 messages were sent and 20 people are responding, then we could at least tell them that, your messages were delivered successfully, but 20% people only responded. So at least like we could show that metrics on that page. So they could articulate which content was more successful than the other.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on a sec.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So you have a mobile versus landline. You have a percentage of undeliverable. And ultimately, all these. So at the top level, all these sellers, all these SaaS customers. I'm so used to saying sellers from Amazon. All these customers, the only thing they want to know is what content is successful, what content is not.
Yes.
That's it. Help me, as a customer, help me with this. I'm paying you a bunch of money. Just help me with that. So as you're painting the context of what their problem is, that's the thing you want to say. We have these SaaS customers. The main thing they're interested in knowing is what is successful, what is not. How are you able to help me figure that out? Okay, so roadblock 1, roadblock 2, but I still don't know. So I think the only thing that I heard from you was the percentage of, or is it how many messages were responded to? But you also have a breakdown of mobile versus landline that you talked to me about. And then you also told me about percentage of undeliverable. So now I've been broken down a bunch of other stuff that I was like, oh, there's all these other things, right? So, okay, like back to this one, like what was actually put on the page? Was it a percentage of delivered by message?
Yes, percentage by message.
Percentage by message, and was it broken down by mobile and desktop? I mean, I'm mobile and landline.
That was not we couldn't display that on the page.
Okay.
So that wasn't something that we could display because it will take too long for us to actually display that on our back end. Like, so like we can't, like the engineer were, saying we cannot do that. And not only that, it's not just like a simple system where we could identify if it's a landline number or not. Okay. Like we had to dig into the data and, keep looking at like if it was a landline or not. And sometimes because like for mobile numbers, like because we have like different companies like AT&T, Verizon, like we could identify it. But if we cannot identify it, like we will maybe consider that as like a landline number or toll-free number.
Yeah.
So that was like another challenge. But but when you upload your contacts, like that was like one thing that we also ensure, because like we cannot identify which number is a landline or which is a mobile number. So that way they I made sure that I talk with the customers enough, like when they are uploading their contact list. Because if they do opt in through our platform, then we could ensure that it is a mobile number. But if not, then we cannot tell them if it's a landline or a mobile number.
Okay, so these customers upload their whole list of customers. And is the first thing that they want to know, because it's a text messaging service, right?
Yes.
The first thing they want to know is, who can I text? Right. So I have a funnel. I give you 100 numbers. You as a platform, I would want you to know 30 of them are potentially mobile numbers. Maybe you can't tell me all of them, but like 30 of them are like where we have some level of confidence that these are mobile numbers. And I would expect a message on the page to say, based on all the different services that are out there for mobile providers, we're not able, due to FCC regulations, to tell you exactly which ones are mobile, but we are statistically significant on this group. And then I would go, oh, okay, cool. That's fine. That's great. So 30 of them are like possibly mobile numbers. Great. And I want to text these people. So all right. So back to this piece, right? You put a percentage of messages that were responded to, but does the page actually have a way of knowing, like once I upload my list, which ones are possibly mobile? It didn't have that then.
Yeah, it didn't have that. The only thing we had was like duplicate numbers
Okay.
and do not call list, which is like a number that they don't want to receive a text message from like a short code. Short code meaning like a short number, which is like 5-digit number.
Mm-hmm.
They have that. Like we were able to tell them these number we cannot contact like or if it's also duplicate. That was like the only thing when they were uploading. Like that's the only data that they will see.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. So I think the main takeaway on this piece here is
Mm-hmm.
get really clear about the exact thing you put on the page, why you put it on the page, and how you were going to measure the success of that thing. Was it, and like really articulate to me, is it in line of the record? So basically, I, as a customer, I click the send button, and then I see, this, record of like sent or sending, and then to the right of that it says percentage responded to. And if that's the main thing you did, okay, cool. Did it work?
Yeah, it did definitely work. The main goal to have this reporting system was like to have more daily usage in sending out text messages. And after implementing this tool, like we definitely did have an increase of 20% of like compared to before. Like people were sending more messages because they could see the success rate. However, we still had that challenge of, identifying which is a landline number and or a mobile number, but it was something that we cannot really solve it for the customer. But like because we were able to show them the response rate, at least like we were able to show some type of data of like what the customers are responding and like what context. Like we actually had also like a message box where they could also see what messages they were receiving, not just like the percentage of like what was responded, but they could see like what they are like what the customer's respondent was.
Okay. Right. The text message response. Right, because it's a text. Like I'm texting you, right? Like back and forth. Okay, cool. So they didn't have a message box before. So they couldn't even respond back to the text messages?
Yeah, they couldn't.
Okay. All right. So I want to separate these things out, because when you say reporting system, I hear in my head, reporting system means multiple metrics for the customer. But the thing that I'm only hearing from you from a reporting angle is all we did was add the how many messages were responded metric, which is not really a reporting system, right? So like the story is disconnected. So and then you brought up this a really interesting feature, which I feel like is a necessary feature for any text messaging platform as a minimum viable product, is this like customer response box. I feel like that is a totally different topic, which I think you should probably bring up, because there's a ton of features that are probably wrapped up into how do you respond to these customers? Can you drop automated messages in, and like, do you see responses on a graph? Like paint like an ultra detailed picture to me, but keep things in silos. If you're going to explain the metrics and call it a reporting system, what are the elements of reporting? And also like the increase of 20%. It seems very loosely defined. It's like 20% as soon as you launched, 20% after 6 months, 20% the day after. And like month over month, was there like, did you continue to see increase, or was it just like some random spike? Those are the probing questions that Facebook's going to come hit you out with. And if you don't have a response, they're going to pass on you, So what we want to do, I think like the main takeaway here is, practice out loud. practice in your room, practice by, record yourself on the iPhone and literally watch yourself back, explaining your answer, and watch yourself where you're faltering, and refine this thing like crazy, because it's a really uncomfortable topic that we don't have a lot of practice with. It's weird talking about ourselves and our goals, but it's so necessary, So I hope this is like somewhat helpful for you.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely helpful. But it's just that I think I really need to work on like what I really want to talk about, like in these, and like you said, like I don't want to jump into a different feature or different topic. I want to make sure that I talk about this one topic that I am going to focus. I think that is very important
from end to end. Launch a metric. What's the success? And then move on to something else. Like maybe the message box was a failure. Right? So tell me about a time you failed. Okay, yeah, we're going to launch this feature. There's the situation. Message box. Customers really wanted it. It was a major pain point. Launched it. I had a goal. I was wrong. Here's why I was wrong. Here's what I would do differently. So it's always this kind of cascade from start, situation, to the end, what actually happened. So it's a full closure for me as a story. So I know I hit you with a lot of stuff, but hopefully it helps you. I think this is the primary reason why you're getting stuck in these interviews, because they're not feeling comfortable with your ability to articulate from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense, because I feel like if I get confident enough for these type of questions, I think I'll definitely do better on my product sense or any other type of questions. I mean, all the framework, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same, but it's just that, like, for me, like, I kept thinking all these type of questions have different framework. I mean, it might have a different framework, but I didn't realize, like, I need to hone in on my personal experience, so that way, like, I could articulate better, like, on my other type of questions.
Yeah, exactly. So just start with one. Only focus on one question, the achievement question, and nail it. And once you feel really confident, tell a friend. Tell yourself on your phone. Do your video on your phone, right? Or hit me up. Give me a script. Write it down, and I could start poking holes in it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sounds good.
Awesome, man. Well, I got to run to a meeting. I would stay on forever. I love talking about this stuff. Hopefully this helped you, and let me know where else I can help you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was great to connect with you today, and thanks for your time today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Okay.